What's up, everybody? It's Chad. We're back again with episode 4 of season 2. I'm here with my buddy AP over here. He joined me today, drove up all the way from Santa Teresa, fought all that traffic and everything, and we're here today. So luckily we're here, and we're going to get you guys this episode. But before that, I got to talk a little bit about the sponsor. So thank you to Quality Packaging for sponsoring today's episode, and actually they're the sponsor for the rest of the month. Quality packaging for your packaging needs, in compliance, great communication, many packaging prices or packaging options, totally custom and on time. Contact Josh Villegas for business inquiries and estimates. The phone number is 575-571-6288, or you can email Koala Customs with a K, 210@gmail.com, and you can find them on Instagram at Koala T Customs with a K. All right, let's get on to the episode and everything. As I said, thank you so much, man, for joining me today.
Hey, man, thank you for having me.
Heck yeah, brother.
I appreciate
anytime.
it, man.
Heck
Yeah,
yeah, dude.
it's always a pleasure kicking it with you. You know what I mean, and you know what you bring to the game and to everything. I'm sure we're gonna get into that though, so I'll let you go ahead.
Oh man, I appreciate it, man.
Yeah.
So we'll get into it. So we'll just dive right into it about you and everything. You go by AP or Strictly 420, right?
Correct. Yeah. So Strictly is actually a name that I got in high school that I just stuck with, and I've been using that kind of as my handle for a long time. It was Strictly AP. Then I just hopped, when I decided to commit fully to making cannabis content, I just decided, strictly cannabis, like what IS was taken. So yeah. I just put cannabiz, a little play on the words and whatnot. Yeah, business, you know what I mean? Yeah. But yeah, it's strictly 420, 710, all that kind of vibes.
Dope, man. Right, that's good to hear. I kind of always wondered that, so I appreciate you sharing with everybody.
Yeah. So oh, my bad to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
But strictly actually is inspired from EPMD. Which is a rap group back from like the 80s or 90s. My mom used to listen to them heavy. Really? And they got an album called Strictly Business. And then after that, I always applied strictly to everything that I did. Like it was like, I'm strictly this, I'm strictly that. Like sticking to me.
So it's been something that's almost your whole life that you've been going.
Yeah,
okay, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I just wanted to give a little bit more insight because, like you said, you was wondering. So.
Yeah. I mean, some people ask about the Invader Kush thing, and I was like, it's about my late dog. He invaded my life, so his name was Kush.
Steve, my homie Steve, that you had met, he loves that day, bro. I'm like, well, I'm like with Chad. He's like, oh, Invader Kush.
It's a cool little name, man. I dig it. I've had it for a while too. Yeah, I appreciate it.
It's dope.
So enough about me. Tell everybody a little bit about yourself then. Like where you come from. What you bring to the cannabis industry. How long you've been in the cannabis industry?
Cool. So I'm originally from New Jersey, East Coast boy. Born and raised. I've been here in New Mexico area for about the last year, on and off between El Paso and out here a little bit. And then now I fully made the transition over the last 6 months, moving to Santa Teresa. And, that's been a blessing. It's been amazing, to kind of live in a state where we can use freely and not really worry about any stipulations. I mean, not necessarily not worry, but it's definitely a little bit more of a lax environment for people like us. So growing up, it was a very big stigma with it, obviously, coming from a Latino family too. Like my mom didn't really play none of those devil's lettuce and whatnot. So, I kind of grew into cannabis use a little bit later in life, more along like 19 or 20. I feel like, most people kind of step into it a little bit younger than that. Maybe like high school, they try for the first time or something. But college was my first time. And then the way that I kind of got into cannabis, I just fell in love with the plant. And I'm really big on just like quality of like things that I'm putting into my body. Yeah. So, whether it's eating or, drinking or, smoking, I want to make sure I'm smoking the best and I'm taking care of myself in that respect. So like, I just kind of wanted to start learning. The first thing I bought, was the Horticulture Bible by Jorge Cervantes. Okay. And like that's the first thing I kind of ever tapped in with when it came to cannabis. And I was, mainly involved in the traditional market growing up. And then,
that was all.
and now I'm trying to find my way, my niche in this, what do we call it? What do you like to call it?
The legal landscape.
Legal landscape?
Yeah, or the adult use market.
Okay, yeah. So like I'm trying to figure out how I'm gonna get my, my imprint in the adult use market. I'm really, as you know, in the content curation format right now, just trying to bring light to, I feel like, the brands that are bringing forward the best kind of quality and taking care of people's lungs and things of that respect. Yeah. And after that, who knows? I think I do have a pretty good nose and palate for things. So maybe, stepping into some more curation with some brands, and definitely trying to tie in fitness into cannabis. It's a very big integral part of my life. So, and like I said, putting what we have into our bodies and taking care of them is just as important. So, we can't just smoke good. We got to treat our bodies good.
Yeah, 100%. And even with my vets, who deal with PTSD and they use cannabis, I have to tell them, you can't just smoke weed and sit on the couch. You got to do things too. You got to proactively better yourself. Seek therapy, work out, find a hobby, garden, something. Even video games. A lot of my buddies, their outlet is a lot of video games. It's the stimulation that for some reason that we get and we need. And I understand. I've dealt with it myself. So no, it's 100%. You just got to make people understand that there's more to it, than just, oh, I'm gonna smoke weed and this and that. Like, well, there's more to it, and you stay very active. I do myself too. I try to work out every other day, and try to, keep an active, life while I consume cannabis at the same time. And it's possible, I'm a very, very busy guy, and so it's,
I've always seen you on the run. You never not going. So, you're a true testament to that, and that's why one of the reasons why I think a lot of us look up to you, and we see you as a motivator, right? To want to do more because you just project that, you lead by example.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that with leadership that I really do try to harness is trying to lead by example. Like that, if you're not leading by example, then someone else is going to do the same way that you're doing it, and they see that, and they're going to do it wrong, or et cetera, et cetera. So it goes down. So you try to lead by example and show everybody else how it's done. So I appreciate that. But how long? So you started using cannabis when you were a kid, right? Like the rest of us.
Yeah. I would say like the first time I ever consumed cannabis, I was probably about like 16 years old, 17 years old. But I had 17 years old, because I had graduated pretty early, and then I went to college. So it was in the summer in between high school and college, like parties and whatnot. Everybody going away to school,
smoking out of cans.
You know what I'm saying? An apple and shit. Like oh, excuse me, an apple.
You can cuss, don't worry.
Oh, okay. My bad, Ma. But like that was probably the first time. But then I would say like regular consumption of cannabis would actually had came when I met Steve. Funny enough, he was like the first person to really show me, I guess, like there's levels to this stuff. You know what I mean? And like I had my first dab and all of that kind of things. Like I started smoking flower regularly, and then out of nowhere, like within the same span of like a week or two, took my first dab too. So like I felt like that's pretty expedited compared to how most people usually have their introduction and stuff like that. So I was kind of like with both for a little bit, but definitely leaning towards like flower consumption for a long time.
Yeah. And that's how most of us, especially from, the younger generations before legalization, that's how most of us started, was from flower. There really wasn't, and to be honest, there wasn't any, wax, rosins and stuff when I was young.
At all.
Like, it was, the only thing you'd find is like Afghanistan, hash. Like the brown hash.
Yeah, the first things I remember were just like big ass parchment papers of shatter. Or just like little drums of crumble that look disgusting.
You're like, what the hell? Mocos, dude. I call them mocos.
For real, bro. Like, that's what I remember. Like compared to now, it's night and day. Like, it's night and day for sure.
Yeah, 100%. So what brought you to New Mexico? Like, what made you want to come to, out of all places? You could have went to Arizona. You could have went to California. You could have went to Nevada. What brought you to New Mexico?
So, I was actually living in El Paso for a little bit prior, like I was saying, and it just was obviously close, and I got to experience it. I've been to California. I'm not a fan, really. Like, I'll be honest. It's just not my cup of tea. I think it's just an East Coast thing. Like, we just don't like West Coast. Like, like that's a real thing. I'm starting to realize, like, I just don't like the way things are set up out there.
I noticed the New York boys hated Hawaii. Really? Hated it. Yeah, every New York boy hated Hawaii because it was an island.
Oh, but see, I like islands though. Because, I live in
you're from Puerto Rico.
I live in Puerto Rico for a minute, so it's like, that's what it is for me. I love being around by the ocean.
Yeah, me too.
But Cali is just different. It just stink different out there. Like the trash looks different. The people are different. Everything. I just don't get the hype as much. So there's that. Arizona, I haven't really explored as much. There's a couple brands I've tried from Arizona, but besides that, I haven't really had anything that like specifically has drawn me there. But when it comes to New Mexico, I just feel in general with all the like landscapes out here, when it comes to like the mountains and just the wide open skies, like I don't experience none of that growing up. So it's like this for me is like a whole new thing. And it just made me feel in a different way at home. Like I felt like I really grew into an adult here. You know what I mean? Mentally and like ready to take the next step. We purchased a house together, me and my girl, and like that was the thing that really was like, oh yeah, like damn, I'm gonna be here probably for the next like chapter of my life.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
and I made the decision to be here just because I feel like the culture as well when it comes to not only cannabis but like actually being New Mexicans is like authentic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I feel like there is a sense of pride here that's not in every state right now, or
Yeah.
not in everywhere in the states. You know what I mean?
You see that Zia everywhere.
Yeah, you know, and it's cool, it's dope, and it's like I just love being around prideful people. I
Yeah.
feel like it breeds, you know, strong, like, you know, strength
Yeah.
in a way. You know, at the same time, you know, there is, you know, ignorance in that when it gets to a certain point, but I don't think that's the case here. And then when it comes to the cannabis community, I feel like it's so different from all the other markets in general. Like it just feels so different. Cali is so like, don't get me wrong, it's the Mecca, right? Like we have to acknowledge that the best genetics, everything came from Cali at this point, right? Or whatever the case may be. But you know, as we know, we got dudes from over here in New Mexico doing big things too.
Yeah.
And you know, you wearing one of them right now.
Yep.
You know, he could easily smoke with the top tiers. Yeah, shout out to Zach for real. You know, he could easily smoke with the best packs out there.
He's been growing for 3 years.
It's nuts.
4 now, I guess.
It's nuts. Out of a what? Out of a context? What? That's what they called, right? What's the containers called?
The Connexes.
Connexes.
Yeah, the Connexes. Yeah, I lived in one of those in Iraq.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always imagine like when I was living in the city and I'd be chilling on the pier, I'd always imagine living in one of those.
Oh, it
like,
sucks. Yeah, you don't want to do that.
I mean, shit, I was homeless for a little bit, so you know, it was like, yo, I could probably stow away in one of these bitches.
Like, you could, you know, to be honest, but yeah, they suck, especially in the summer. Oh, it's the worst in the summer, dude. It's a can.
That must be crazy. But yeah, I just the culture here when it comes to the whole cannabis wise, you know, the community is super dope. Like, you know, I haven't seen every community has its flaws, but you know, in this one, I feel like there's more good than bad for sure.
Yeah, you know, there's a lot of togetherness in our community for the most part. Yeah, like I said, like you said, there's some issues, but it's not like other places, you know, with their issues. Like, you know, you're gonna get people who have, you know, the little bad blood or whatever, but it's not as bad as like California. Yeah. You know, California is on another different level with that. You know, and like I watch it all the time, and I'm like, whoo, you guys are like burning like Rome right now.
Beef is for real over there. Yeah. And like, you know, between everything, it's just getting messy. It's but you know, I think, and I saw something the other day, it was like an argument versus like legalization and decriminalization. Yeah. And it was like, you know, once you get into that legalization aspect, the commercialization is also incorporated, right? Yeah. And that makes everybody get so money hungry, money crazy. And I feel like that's just what's going on in Cali, right? Like to a degree, like, don't get me wrong, people are definitely feeling offended if somebody, you know, steps on their genetics or like tries to rebrand something and something's not. But at the end of the day, it's paper we talking about, you know?
Yeah,
I mean, like guns and butter, as they say.
Right, 100%. You know, and you know, the money makes people do weird things. And, you know, especially when there's the thought of money, and everyone's been told for so long, oh, yeah, cannabis is, you know, you're pretty much printing money. You're doing this. I'm like, no, you don't just open your doors and say, I have cannabis and you're going to sell it. Yeah. Like, especially here in New Mexico right now, like maybe in April 1st of 2022, you know, would that be the case? But here, you know, January, almost February of 2024, total different case. There's oversaturation. There's so many options. There's way more product out there, you know, like Alto Cannabis, you know, that I'm wearing right now, they weren't around in 2022 right away. You know, then it took them a little bit to get online. And once, you know, all these other guys started coming out and they're like, oh shit, you know, we got some good fire coming on. And now we're starting to see a lot of the customer base change what they want. You know, they're starting to go, okay, we have all this mass produced cannabis. It's not good and it's cheap, but let's try this, you know, $10 gram one, or, you know, something like that, maybe $12 gram one that, you know, is better quality. And some of them are starting to move that direction. Like, oh, I don't have to smoke as much cannabis if it's good. You know, if it's a better quality, I don't have to smoke as much.
You realize that. And I feel like it's, again, I tie it back into like fitness and health. Yeah. Like when you go.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about the fitness and health portion of it, you know, what you do.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Well, me personally, I've been a trainer for about the last 7 years. I've been a athlete my whole life, like as long as I can remember. I wasn't always the best one, but I've always worked my butt off, you know what I mean, to make sure I can contend with the best of the best. Yeah. And I just feel like it's something that has instilled a discipline and a motivation in me around life that, you know, you can take to everything. Yeah. And when it came to, you know, the health aspect, and when it comes to cannabis consumption, I look at it just like food, like literally. I'm putting all this stuff in my body. I shop at Sprouts or Whole Foods every once in a while because at the end of the day, like, yeah, it's a little bit more expensive. But if I invest this money right now am I gonna have to pay for it later in medical bills?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
this and that. Like, you know what I mean? I look at it in that kind of perception, and I look at my cannabis the same exact way. I'd rather spend $15 on a gram if I know, I'm not gonna have this rasp. I'm not gonna have that cough. I'm not gonna feel.
You're not gonna run into mold.
Yeah, you know what I mean. I'm like, there's so many factors that I feel like come into play, and like, yeah, is your ash white or whatever the case. But if it's smoking and it's making you feel good, I think is the number one thing, right?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
in all aspects, not just in like having you zooted, right? Like
Yeah.
it's more so too about being able to enjoy something, being able to actually smoke it and enjoy it, and like have a, how can I say, just more of a correlation to it besides getting high.
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
just respect that a lot. And then when it comes into the fitness, there's so much research right now being done as how cannabis can actually correlate to helping us with fitness, right? Cannabis is made for us basically with our endocannabinoid system, and it's the same thing that works with all of our receptors for how we feeling after we work out, and those runners highs and those gym highs, you know what I mean? So it's only apparent to me that they go hand in hand. Like, and not in an abuse situation, but a use situation. And I think that might be a disconnect that needs some like clearing up. Yeah. Because I could be honest, I probably abuse cannabis. Like I probably smoke too much for myself. Like, but in a way that I have learned to adapt to, right? Yeah. But I think as we go forward with research and things of that nature, they'll actually be able to find out like specific dosaging for somebody that just wants to use it for the gym.
Yeah,
or
exactly.
Things of that nature.
Yeah, or maybe we'll find different cultivars down the line, that work better in tandem with working out, or maybe running. Because for myself, I kind of stay more on the sedative side or the indica side, as you will, some of us use different terminology in that sense. But more on the sedative side, with PTSD, you don't really want to be too up, with what I have. So I tend to use the indica side, so I won't use cannabis after I work out, because if I use the sedative stuff during, I feel too weak. Because my body's I'm too relaxed. Okay. And so afterwards, it's better for me because I'm a little sore, this and that. Okay, let me get these kinks out, use cannabis afterwards. And that seems to benefit me too. So if you are out there and you have the same issue as me, try using cannabis afterwards. Some people just can't use it during because of the way your body is, the cannabis that you use or whatever. And that's a tip for you. And some people are like, oh yeah, I love taking a sativa and then going running. I'm like, that's fine, all day,
I have a bunch of friends like that, that they get that runner's high before they start running.
Yeah, exactly, right.
Like, no, it's for sure different strokes for different folks. That's how I put it for everything. Like, just like somebody takes their pre-workout in the middle of their workout rather than at the end. It's the same thing. Like, if say the thing that they're testing actually at Colorado University right now is with runners specifically and with gummies. Okay. So sometimes they do it incrementally. Sometimes they do it, they're just trying all the trials and all the different ways that it can align with the body. Interesting. So they do mid-session sometimes, because like if you're a long distance runner, you usually need carbs in the middle of your run or so they basically did them THC infused. Yeah. So it was a 10 milligram dosage. And then you see a spike in the theta zone in the brain waves and whatnot. So then basically you just get in that zone.
Oh, okay. So it just zones you. Because I remember I was a distance runner growing up. My brother's actually, he ran for CU. He ran track and cross country for CU. He's a national champion runner. And so, I have some of the genes. And so I ran myself. And I remember the focusedness that you would get to once you snap into it and you're just focused. And you don't even realize how fast you're running.
Yo, it's crazy. Yeah, that's nuts. That's literally the theta state. That's what it's called in the brain, and like that's like what we as athletes know as the zone. Yeah. Right? When the basket looks like a freaking ocean.
Or football play, you don't hear anything, you just see what's going on in slow motion.
Yeah. So they're just like, I guess, figuring out how to get people there to get more engaged with exercise. And I think that's super dope. And then obviously, like you said, afterwards is like that how it plays into recovery. Yeah. Reducing inflammation. That's a known thing that cannabis does, right? Yeah. Even just helping people relax to get into a zone to recovery. Because think about how fast we all live nowadays. Yeah. A lot of people don't understand that half the battle of working out, I would say a third of the battle, because a third of it is nutrition. But a third of the battle of working out is recovery. And a lot of us don't. I can imagine you barely get time to recover because you're always on the go. Yeah, probably only time when you consume cannabis is when you recover, besides when you sleep. Yeah, exactly. So that's also a nice mediation point for people. Yeah. And one thing I've actually am working on right now is a breathing program for us cannabis users that I think will really benefit us in the sense of like not limitless breath, but try to understand how our breathing works a little bit better, how to control it. I get dab coughs sometimes, even though I'm smoking rosin. And,
Yeah.
it'll catch up to you if you are smoking enough or if you're session or whatever the case. So it's important to do maintenance, right? Prehab, not rehab.
Yeah, there you go. There we go. That's a good way to look at it. I like
Yeah.
the little rhymes you have with it too.
Yeah, no, I always like to do those alliterations and stuff like that when training because they just people remember those things.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, because
for-
well, let's talk about that too. So first, I want to ask, what was your past work before the industry? Because you told me before, but I don't know if you want to elaborate on that or not.
Yeah, just training mainly. Oh, actually, I was a creative for a really long time. I worked in the modeling industry when it came to fitness.
Yeah.
And I worked with like some Nike, Adidas, Champion, a whole bunch of just really big names in that brand. But I'll be honest, that space is a little tricky. And then when COVID came around, it just wiped everything. I've bounced around and done a lot, but fitness has definitely been the mainstay. And I've always kind of kept that at the forefront. But after that, I actually tried to pursue a professional basketball career. And that's why I ended up moving to Puerto Rico. I was actually playing in the semi-pro league there and just kind of, vying my way through that process, but always staying and getting training.
Yeah.
And then when I finally decided to come back home, it just, made sense to hop right back into training. And the reason why I love doing it so much is because I get to help people.
There you go.
And when I was doing the whole online thing, and it's hard because you get so high volume and it doesn't really you can't really take care of people. You can't really service people. So I decided to step back into a gym setting and actually, help people hands on. I'm actually working with a couple of our friends, associates, however you want to put it, right?
Some industry people.
Yeah. Astrid from Queen Bee. I'm actually training her now.
Cool.
Hopefully Cozy. I know you say you want this program. Tap in, bro. Come on, let's get right.
Go bulk them up a little bit or what?
You know what I mean? Yeah, it's important to feel good. That's always the main thing for me. I might not always look the best compared to somebody else's standards, but I feel good.
Yeah.
I can do what I want with my body. I can put my back of my hands on the floor, stretching. I can, jump up to a box if I want to.
Yeah.
I can, lift as much weight as I want to. It just it's empowering and it makes you just want to do more stuff.
Yeah.
And just dominate in more things in life.
Yeah, and it helps you with energy and everything too. That's one reason why I like to work out as much as I do, because I do so much that if I wasn't working out, I would be significantly more tired than I am.
100%.
I am tired, guys. I am human. But we are all human. And if it wasn't for cannabis and working out, I'd be an exhausted fool. It'd be an interesting person I'd be.
Let me ask you, how many hours of sleep do you get on average?
I'll probably get 6 to 7.
Maybe, that's pretty good.
Yeah,
that's
maybe 5. Yeah.
I just literally did a seminar on sleep at my job. So
Yeah.
I was just talking about pretty much how all that stuff correlates. And it's crazy, again, how much recovery is part of the battle.
Yeah.
But again, it's great that we have cannabis as a bridge to kind of help us in certain instances when we're too stressed. Or we can't, get into that relaxation point to kind of help us get there.
Yeah, 100%. Because so many people are just go, and in the military, they're on this assumption that we were just go, but we rested. There was times where we had to rest.
Yeah.
Because they understood that we went 24 hours or whatever. Even if I had duty for 24 hours, I had the next day off. To rest, because they have to give you that rest period.
For sure.
Rest is very important. And so many people that I see, they just work 7 days a week, or they work out 7 days a week. I'm like, you're gonna hurt yourself. You need a time to relax and everything reset and recover. So that's dope.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the cannabis and the content that you make now.
Okay.
So you're on Instagram. Are you on anything else doing content?
Yeah, I do YouTube. I'm not as consistent as I like to be on there yet.
Yeah.
It's just a lot more time consuming when it comes to editing and things of that nature. And right now I'm just I'm working a whole bunch, but it's definitely doable, and I want to step more into doing it. I really enjoy it because I feel like I get my whole personality across rather than just snippets. But on Instagram, it's definitely mainly the I was doing more of the funny kind of typical eye catcher kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I've decided personally for my brand and what I want to portray as somebody that's a cannabis user is productivity and just being more of what you kind of do in that sense, in a different light, right? You
Yeah.
know, I feel like you're at the forefront when it comes to that as an advocate, as like you said, a leader earlier on, and you know, somebody that people trust and look to for that information, like a point of reference. You know what I mean? And I want to be that, but in the fitness space for our cannabis community. You know what I mean? And also help along the lines of just more advocacy, show people more of the aspects of what cannabis has to bring to the table, like, and how it's not just, you know, one fact, like monofaceted, but multifaceted.
Yeah, and to be honest, you know, that helps kill the stigma. We'll get more on stigma here in a little bit, a whole conversation on it. But that helps kill the stigma, you know, on cannabis, especially when it comes to cannabis and exercise, because there's this big misconception that stoners or cannabis users, you know, we are lazy, we don't have any motivation, this and that. You know, if that was the case, we wouldn't have a cannabis industry, you know, like altogether. You know, if we were lazy and we didn't do anything, that we wouldn't be here right now.
It ain't easy to grow.
No, growing
grow good cannabis is not easy to do.
No.
I only know a few people that do it.
Yeah, you know, it's not easy to grow, you know, good cannabis that smells good, looks good, you know, checks all the boxes. That's not easy. You know, you can grow cannabis. You know, most people can, but is it going to be good? Is the good question. So yeah. So that's dope. And you know, what about the advocacy? You already talked about that. So how do you want to get more involved in like the advocacy work and stuff like that? Of course, I'll help you. But.
Yeah. I think working in tandem with you would definitely benefit me a lot. Just learning and understanding how the proper avenues to go about things. Right. You know, who I should be calling, who I should be emailing, who I should be reaching out to, or trying to see, or trying to talk to. I think as well, I would love to do more things in the sense of like seminars or events. I think hands-on is where I'm really the best. You know what I mean? In front of people, talking to people, being around them, and like seeing. I feel like I have infectious energy. You know what I mean? And I want to give people that feeling that I have when it comes to this, like taking care of your life feeling that I have when it comes to smoking good, eating good, training hard. You know, and Deion Sanders always just say this thing is look good, feel good, play good.
Oh man, I remember that one so much.
It's a banger.
My whole life. It's my whole life. I remember that.
And it's true. Like when you have all that in a row, it's easy. And I really want to lean more into maybe doing some like maybe like those breathing workshops, maybe something like that.
There you go.
Really, like I think that would be really dope. Like sitting down with a group of people for an hour and just working on that. Maybe even having somewhere we can consume. And doing that afterwards to try and see how you can go ahead and like correlate that afterwards. Because that's usually when I do it. I do it before and after. Like if I'm planning a sesh, I'll probably do it beforehand. But if I'm, you know, smoking and I realize like, oh, maybe I need a little tune-up. Like I try to do it. And I try to do breath work with meditation on a daily as well. But I think this is just a structured thing that, you know, people can institute as almost like a little workout program every once in a while that'll really help them. So things like that, mobility, just getting more active in general and just showing people that all you need is really 30 minutes a day. You don't need to be in the gym an hour and a half, 2 hours. Like, don't listen to Instagram. Don't do none of that. Like, listen to your body. Listen to your body.
And that's one thing that a lot of people are like, oh, you know, if, you know, no pain, no gain. It's like, oh, well, there's times where I stop because I have bad knees, you know, from the Army. So there's certain exercises where I can only do so many of them before I'm like, all right, I'm tapped out. My knees are just not able to do this. I'll do something to, you know, to replace that. So, you know, don't be afraid to change up or modify your exercises if you need to. Also, don't have bad form, but, you know, don't be afraid to modify.
Yeah, for sure. Like you gotta, what we call them in training is progressions or regressions. So like, don't be afraid to regress. Just don't make you less of anything or anything like that. You're on your process. You're working through it. And nobody hesitate. I mean, don't anybody hesitate to reach out to me for any advice or anything like that. I'm not gonna charge you for no consultation or nothing like that. If you want to train with me and, you know, we get a program going, you know, we could talk about that, whatever the case may be. But if you just need some help, you need to get the ball rolling, I have no problem helping anybody.
Nice. Yeah, well, I appreciate that, man. I'm sure they appreciate that too, because there's people out there that just don't know where to get started. Just like advocacy, you know, like you got to have someone kind of point you in the right direction sometimes. And, you know, you're the guy for that, and you know, you seem like you're very patient with people, so that, you know, that helps out. It's a big part of it that a lot of people don't have. Is patience.
Cannabis.
Cannabis is a big one. So, well, let's talk about terps, man. You know, like you're more or less, you know, you love your dabs, you love the flavor, and of course, you know, the high end. I wouldn't say high end cannabis, quality cannabis. You know, like quality cannabis doesn't have to be high end.
True.
You know, it can be a decent price, you know, depending on the grower. So, what are some of your favorite terps when you consume cannabis?
Ooh, I'm a little bit different than most people. I feel like people usually hate this one, but I'm a big orange guy.
Oh, I love orange. Yeah, like
Yeah.
you know the citrus. I love it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm a big orange dude. Like,
Yeah.
I love orange terps. I'm not really biased. I go through my phases.
Yeah.
But I would say like a good super booth is fire.
Oh yeah, I do love a super booth.
You can't miss with that.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite like rosins when we're talking about that. When it comes to like flower terps, I'm a big sherb guy.
Okay.
I love sherb.
Yeah.
Like, cause you still get those cookie terps kind of a little bit like those OG, not OG, but like those old school cookie terps. But at the same time, you still get some of that new candy. You know what I mean? It's a little bit of both. It's a thicker, it's a more full smoke to me than like smoking some Z or smoking something like along those lines personally.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm really big. I love my gas too though. You know, I just my GMOs and my my OGs, and whenever I could get my hand on any rosin that's an OG or a Kush or anything like that, like when Kush's Craft had that, when y'all had that Majin V Kush running around.
Oh yeah,
man, like like stuff like that. Like I'm really messing with. Yeah, so usually I'm all the way fruity or gassy, but mainly the orange. Yeah. Orange is me.
I mean, I love it so much. I named my dog Tangy. So I mean,
I was about to say that. That's your dog named Tangy.
Yeah, her name's Tangy after the tangerine, after the cultivar Tangy. So it's a cute name too. So why not?
Yeah, it's dope. I know if you remember, my dogs are named after. Our animals are named after vegetables.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, I thought it was a tater.
Yeah, I got potato, onion, bean, and corn. But I want to get a garlic and mushroom, so we have GMO.
That's hilarious. That's
That'd
good.
Fire, right?
That's a good one.
That'd be fire.
I love how creative you are with that. That's pretty dope.
Yeah. Shout out to my girl. She's actually who started that.
Oh no, really? That's funny.
Yeah.
Because I'll go over and I'll see them. I'm like, "What's up, Tater?"
Yeah. He knows that's his nickname too.
Yeah.
It's hilarious. Yeah.
I'm like, "What's up, dude?" He's a cute little guy. I love him to death.
Yo, shout out to Potato.
Right? Yeah.
My bad, guys.
I'm sure he's waiting for you at home. So, what are some tips you can give people, about terps and, if they just don't like it? Like, say I'm smoking this cannabis with someone and I'm new to cannabis, you know what I mean? And it's kind of off-putting to me to the point where I may not smoke cannabis again. What are some tips you can give people to kind of bring them back from that to try it again?
I mean, I would say you got to realize that cannabis is so varied.
Yeah.
Right. Depending on cultivator, depending on the strain, depending on so many factors. Right.
Yeah.
The wash. If we're talking specifically about rosin, you know what I mean. What kind of the micron size, right, that you're using to wash and whatnot, and getting what heads you're getting through. And all those factors are a big thing. So I would tell somebody that you got to give it the old college try. You got to understand that not all cannabis. If you see a Tangy wax right here, it's not the same Tangy wax you're seeing right there.
No, exactly.
Unless it all came from that same, producer. Correct. Yeah. So, I've had, GMOs that I didn't really like, and I've had GMOs I could smoke every day. Yeah. And it's the same thing even when I get into like the percentage thing too, and I know that's a big conversation we have all the time. Yeah. It's not always about the numbers or what you think it might be. You have to give it that chance to understand it. I think our generations in general right now that are very present in the community are very we're entitled to good stuff. So when something isn't good right away, we're like, wow, what the fuck? I don't know. We're just we've had the best of everything. So we don't know how to differentiate sometimes. So I think in that respect, it's just telling somebody to just give it a chance and understanding that every time you see a jar, it is a new jar. It is something different.
Yeah, it's something totally different. Because we've been spoiled with consistency with every other product that we get that's, like a commercial product.
Uniform.
Coca-Cola, cereal, McDonald's, everywhere you go for the most part, all of those taste the same. It's done the same.
Uniformity.
It's not, and we're just not there yet with cannabis. Our genetics are so unstable that, we're like 50, 60 years behind, any other kind of agricultural crop. So it's just going to take a while for us to get to that point to have a stable crop, a stable genetics. And we're still trying to figure out what's the best way to grow cannabis. There's so many different methods and mediums now that it's almost countless. Yeah. You have the living soil, you have, hydroponics. And then within hydroponics, you have little subcategories of hydroponics. And it just breaks down even further. And I'm sure it's like that with mostly everything too. It's just, I grow hydroponics the most. And I'm not even using, the bubble, reverse culture or DWC thing I used to. It's just, Coca Core with perlite, and you got a automatic dripper in there, and it's going. So it's one of those things that it just takes time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
No, I think, and in my personal opinion, I think it's a blessing right now because, like, it's like if you go and shop organic, and this goes back to the food, right?
Yeah.
Nothing looks the same.
no.
That's not how the world makes stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so I don't mind that it's different every time I get it. I
Yeah.
think that's cool.
Mhm.
Like, it's like opening a mystery airhead, but you know kind of what you're gonna get every time,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like,
right.
it's that white cherry or whatever. But at the same time, it's like, oh, this is different, though.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And I kind of wish they'd give us the ugly fruit, because if you guys didn't know this, at the stores when you go and you see the pretty tomatoes, they picked out the ugly tomatoes that are fine. There's nothing wrong with them. They're just not appealing.
Yeah.
You know, they just don't look pretty. So I wish they put those in the store so that way we would get less consistency. You know what I mean? Like, we don't have to
understand
be as consistent, because that's not real life.
That's not.
Real life isn't as consistent as we made it. You know, like, we forced life to be as consistent as it is now. Don't get me wrong, it's nice, but I don't need a tomato with the perfect shape and everything. If it's a little oblong, I'm still gonna eat it. You know, like, it's still healthy.
For sure. Yeah. Like, I completely agree with that, for sure. Bro.
Yeah, 100%. So let's talk a little bit about the heady community, because, you know, when I met you, you're already kind of a part of the heady community. And to be honest, I was kind of moving into it because I'm a flower guy. You know, I'm not much of a, you know, extract, you know, a rosin guy.
Mhm.
So that's something that was last year I was just learning and getting more into.
Okay.
So how do you feel, how does New Mexico's heady community compare to others that you've noticed?
So funny enough, I just kind of got into this heady stuff about 3-4 months ago.
Oh, that's
myself.
fucking funny.
I just went like what I like to say, strictly solving this. You know
Yeah,
what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
So I just went like that a couple months ago. Honestly, when I moved to New Mexico, I just made that decision, and I wasn't really consuming as much cannabis. I guess concentrate wise, I
Yeah.
was mainly just flower, like
Yeah.
consistently. And I guess when I would have a dab, I wasn't in really the situation to like constantly be dabbing or whatnot.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I wasn't really like looking at it in that respect. But I originally grew up like really just finding the exotics when it came to flower, like the Jungle Boys, and again in New Jersey, that's halfway. That's 3,000 miles across.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it's like it was crazy for us, right?
It's pricey.
Yeah, yeah, 65, 75, and 8 growing up. Like, no BS. I mean,
Yeah.
I wasn't doing that. But, but you know what I'm saying? That's what my old heads were getting off and helping me, you know, situate and see what's up with. And I learned so much from that. That was the first time. I remember the first time I seen rosin. It was in a Hashy Larry's jar.
Okay.
And they were only coming in 0.5 grams at that point. And this was still traditional market.
Yeah.
And it was just like, whoa, like this is something different, right? But once I got here, I just noticed that, like I said, the community is different here.
Yeah.
Anywhere else, I really didn't get gravitated into it as strongly as I did here.
Yeah.
And then it just made sense to me with how I'm trying to consistently live my life now. Over the last few years, I've had a lot of like change.
Yeah.
You know, from moving around, just like experiences with my family and things of that nature. So just life, right?
Yeah.
So I've just now have somewhere to like settle, and I feel like that community kind of welcomed me with open arms in a way. And I think it's pretty dope. Like, there are some, you know, things that I feel like we can work on, you know, as a community. If I feel like I'm part of it, I feel like I can speak on it. So I would say that. But besides that, I feel like everybody's, you know, pretty much there for each other. And, you know, people have given me some tips and helped me out to make my experience better. Like, shout out to Jet. He actually, told me like dry dabbing is better than water dabbing. And
Yeah.
for me personally, it is. Like,
Yeah.
I enjoy it way more now. I think
Yeah.
it's way more flavorful, and I love it. Like, you know, so that's a kudos to him. I mean, you guys, every time I link up with y'all always educate me, and I would say, you know, y'all are definitely in that too. Even though you're newer, I would say we're both probably on the same page when it comes to how new we are.
Yeah, because, you know,
Yeah.
I've learned a lot because, you know, Jet and Dabra, I grew up with those guys, and so they teach me a lot throughout the years on it, and so I've just slowly kind of been learning, you know, through them too as well, and of course, you know, the Cruce's Craft homies, you know, Jeff and Josh, and, you know, even Cozy, you know, I've learned a lot from them, you know,
Nice.
and the hash hole thing is still very new, I've noticed, you know, and so
Yeah.
we're still trying to figure out the best way to roll them, and so Cozy has his techniques, and, you know, he'll show me some things sometimes, and, you know, it's really cool.
Yeah.
You know, as a community, we're all willing to kind of talk together and share things, which is great. That's the way it should be, you know?
I think that's how you grow too, because right now it's such an open and organic space. Like, nobody's like really hating on each other right now,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You know, we ain't there yet, thank goodness, right? I hope we never get there.
Yeah.
But for right now, we're in an open space where I feel like everybody's just pushing each other,
Yeah.
and that's how it's supposed to be. Like, what is it? What does it say? Get better, not bitter.
Yeah,
Don't
yeah,
be
you get
bitter,
better, yeah.
yeah. You know, and
Get good.
I like that.
Yeah.
I'm one of those people where I'm from. It's hard nosed. Like, you know, closed mouths don't get fed.
Yeah.
And if you're not ready to work, you're not gonna get you're gonna get what you deserve if you're
Yeah.
not ready to work. You
No,
know
that's
what I
that's
mean?
the way it goes.
It's the way it goes, and
Yeah.
I feel like just here everybody's down to do that. Like
Yeah.
the part of the community, they're down to push each other. They're down to work.
Yeah.
I even, you know, I see how they be rolling. I get competitive. I'm not even a roller. I don't even do that. I'm like, yo, I'm gonna pearl this and post it on my story. And I'm gonna be like, yeah, Cozy, what you think? Yeah, like I do it all the time because
Yeah.
I think it's just like, you know, it's part of it. Like, it's just cool. It's cool. It's dope. And the hash hole tech is getting crazy, man. Now everybody's doing them. They're
you know,
saturated.
call them
now.
different things, and
you know,
infuse joints everywhere.
I wonder what's gonna be next. Right?
I don't know. And you know, some things they come back after being gone for so long as
Yes.
trends. So I'm thinking we might see some old trends come back at some point, but I'm not sure what. You know?
I hope not moon rocks.
Oh, dude, I hope not. I'm not a big fan of moon rocks.
I
They're
hated
a mess,
moon rocks
dude.
forever.
Oh, they're a mess,
I
dude.
always hated them, bro.
If you guys aren't aware, moon rock is just a cannabis flower bud, just a little bud. They take that and then they dip it in some kind of extract, either it be distillate or whatever. They dip it in there, make sure it's nice and coated, pull it out, and then they roll it in some keef. And then they put it in a jar and sell it to you for like $50 a gram.
Well, what I had heard growing up is that it's the worst of each of those.
Yes.
In their packs,
Yeah.
in their production, pretty much.
You got boof flour, boof distillate,
just garbage distillate. And
then the keef is from the trim.
Yeah. Like, damn, like that's terrible. Bro.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know, man. I think I want to venture into melts.
Okay.
That's, I think, my next thing. I think I want to really step into full melts and stuff, like learn that 6-star hash space.
There you go.
And like really start partaking in that, because now I'm hearing there's a new movement. I don't know if you've heard it. It's not rosin.
Not rosin. Oh God.
Yeah. So like I've seen a lot of dudes like on in Cali and like other places, they're pushing that not rosin.
So what is not rosin?
Just full melts, and I guess I don't know what the other. I don't think it's fresh press, but I think it's something else that just looks crazy. I'm not super duper educated on it though.
Yeah.
But the full melt though, I definitely know what that is. And
Nice.
I'm definitely trying to get my hands on some of that stuff. But I don't really know too many New Mexico producers making full melt right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I haven't been in Sunland. I haven't had no chance finding it. Like I haven't had no luck finding any. So, and we had, we were saturated dispos over there. So
Yeah.
So for me to say that is like, I think it's like a thing, right?
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
There's no melts anywhere. That's pretty wild.
That's interesting, yeah, because a lot of the extract stuff in the South, people up north, like, man, you guys like rosin, and because like the games in up north and down south are two different, the extract or the hash worlds, and so yeah, we're seeing it different here. Maybe up north they're doing it more than we are, so maybe it's a little flip flop. So maybe next time I'm in Albuquerque we'll check it out. Yeah. But yeah, I mean that's really all I had for the Headies. I wanted to kind of talk about that because we haven't really talked about the Heady community, and if you guys don't know, the Heady community is just kind of bunch of people who are, connoisseurs, really nice rigs, and they really love good cannabis and all that good stuff. So that's the reason why I mentioned that, because I actually met you within like kind of the Heady community as well.
Yeah. When was the first time did we meet? Was it that Dark Matter event?
I think that was the first time I met you in person. I think you'd been following me already.
Yeah. We were already connected on the gram.
Yeah. So that was the first time we met in person. So yeah, that was it. So
okay.
The Heady community. Shout out to everyone in that, and you guys know who you are. So
yes, sir. Yeah, and I would say one thing that I really like about the Heady community out here is not just about having the most expensive glass.
Yeah.
Like I think it's cool. Like I started like buying more local artists now. So like I'd rather spend my $300 or $400 with like one of my homies than 2,000 somebody I don't even know who they are.
Yeah.
Like and I think that's a really dope part of the community here too. Like everybody's kind of smoking each other's glass.
Yeah.
And, like moving it around, and I think that's super cool.
Yeah. Is that a so and so? Yeah. You're like, oh yeah. And it's cool to see that. Everyone's showing off their art and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's like our new Pokemon cards.
Right. Yeah. Our generation.
Yeah.
So, but thank you again for joining me. I know that conversation went a little long, but some really good topics and everything. So let's move on to the next topic, y'all. Thank you again for joining me. But you're going to continue the conversation with me, of course. So next we're going to talk about cannabis stigma. And we already touched a little bit on of this earlier in the show. So now we're going to touch on it more. And I want to give you guys a personal story, and this won't take long. So this weekend I was up in Santa Fe, and I was doing my thing up there, and I was at an after party, and I wanted to roll a joint. No big deal. There was alcohol there. We're all adults. Everyone's significantly an adult. And then we had some legislators there too, some lawmakers. No big deal. They're the ones who pass cannabis, right?
Yeah.
So I decided to step to the side room, not even the main room, to go roll a joint. And I'm rolling some Alamo cheese, which is kind of stinky. And someone comes in of the door, just busts in, doesn't say anything to me other than, can you roll that in your room and not here? Just demanding me to do that. I'm confused. I'm sitting here with the joint in my hand. I'm like, what's going on?
Excuse
You know, I was like, who are you?
Yeah, like,
I was like, what the hell? And so he was like, that stinks. Can you roll it in your room? I was like, well, I don't have a room here. You know, I'm at this hotel. And he was like, well, can you roll it somewhere else? And I was like, no. Like, why do I have to roll it somewhere else? He was like, well, it stinks. I was like, oh, well, I can put the lid on for the jar if you want. And he gets pissed off and walks off, right? And so I'm like, the hell? And like, everyone's having a good time. And I'm just kind of like, what's going on here? You know, like the whole day, everyone was making cannabis jokes and, you know, this and that. And like, oh, it's the cannabis guy. So I thought it was cool. Even like, you know, where we were, they're like, oh, I was like, oh, we should get cannabis in here next year. And people were laughing or whatever. And, you know, this and that. And I was like, yeah, I can get some, you know, joint rollers to maybe come up here. We can, you know, if we pay them to roll some joints for us. You know, I think that'd be cool and help kill the stigma. But the stigma is still strong still. And I didn't realize this, that, you know, they got pissed. And like, they couldn't give me an actual reason why I shouldn't be doing that either. Like, it was just like, can you do that somewhere else that stinks? I was like, well, just close the jar. I'm not going to smoke it inside. Yeah. And so he got upset about that. And the other gentleman that, you know, was in there too, just was like, well, if you want, you can roll it in my room. And I was like, why do I have to roll it anywhere else other than like where I am? Like, what is going on here? And one of their excuses is like, well, there's legislators here. And I'm like, yeah, they're the ones who passed this law to give me this right. What is going on? So no one could give me a real reason. So I think it upset them enough to, you know, walk off and just be like, hands in the air. What do I do? I'm done. I'm like, well, I don't know what to tell you. So I finished rolling my joint, went outside and smoked it because my plan was just to smoke that joint and then leave. You know, I was going to go hang out with one of my friends, and I did just that. Went outside, smoked the joint, and then I left. And I was like, that was weird. But I wanted to share that story because it really shows how deep the stigma goes, because these are business people that I was dealing with, and a lot of business people still don't like cannabis. And one thing that we're going to have to do, and it's going to be hard, is have these hard conversations with these people and also stand our ground. If you're not doing anything wrong and you're within the right, don't bend your knee because someone just dislikes it. I dislike alcohol. I dislike the smell of alcohol in someone's breath. I didn't say anything to anyone the whole day. Everyone was drinking the whole day, wine, beer, whatever. You know, I didn't give a shit. You know, I was smoking my weed. So that's one thing that bothered me, was the fact that I left everybody alone the whole day. But the one time I rolled a joint, you know, it was just, you're the devil, you know, this and that. And I didn't take anything the wrong way. I had nothing against anybody in the situation. What this did is it just showed me that we still have work to do. You know, we still have a lot of work to do. You know, everyone else was really nice that whole day, you know, the whole weekend. Everyone was great. It was just that one situation where, you know, I would say it was a misunderstanding. You know, because no one could tell me what I did wrong. You know,
because you didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah, I wasn't doing anything wrong. There was no kids there, you know, whatever. You know, and even then, like, I'm just rolling a joint. Like, no one's being harmed by a smell. You know, like, I'm more harmed by going to Eastern New Mexico, being exposed to all the oil gas rigs that are over there and that smell than you are with cannabis. You know, like, for sure. That probably shortened my life by a couple months just going there for a couple days. So there's that. I don't like that smell. Some people like that smell. Some people like the smell of cow poop. Some people like the smell of gasoline. So, you know, it's just, it goes from person to person. So what are some stigma stories that you have, or some examples, like especially recent, that you can probably share?
Oh man, I feel like almost anytime I'm not really shy about my cannabis use. You know what I mean? Like, I don't mind. Kush be my cologne, as Lil Wayne said. Right? Yeah.
There we go. Yeah,
I'm not really. I don't think it should offend anybody if I'm not, like, you know, smoking or consuming right in front of them, or like invading on their privacy, on their space. But I feel like, you know, whenever me and my girlfriend, we like to go to nice restaurants. And we went to this nice restaurant. It was in El Paso, and I feel like, I don't know if she realized, but I definitely realized, because of how I think we smell, because we dress nice, we look good, every hair is taken care of, everything is okay. But we just getting these side eyes and we're getting these looks, and I know what it's from. You know what I mean? And I don't think people, I walk around with a mean mug all the time, I guess, and like, I don't think people really want to tell me anything. You know what I mean? So luckily I haven't ran into anything out here recently like that was very like predominant with my stigma. But I feel like my family was a long time like that I had to deal with that, even though I could bring them literature or article after article. And I feel like that's one of the main stigmas to get past in general, like when it comes to, like, you know, the people you call close to you or your family that kind of look at it and look at you in a certain type of light. But, you know, now I'm proud to say that I could be on the phone and smoke a joint with my mom. Like, you know what I mean?
That makes sense. I can smoke a joint with them.
You know, maybe hopefully one day my mom's open to use, you know, but at this point in time, I'm just stoked I could be around her, and
Yeah.
she knows that I'm either under the influence of cannabis, or I like use cannabis, or
Yeah.
I'm consuming in front of her. Like that's like my only like destigmatization goal for the longest time. But now stepping into this more of an advocate space and putting my face forward, I want to just help get that out there as well.
Yeah, definitely. So thank you for sharing that, by the way, because dealing with stigma in family is something that we probably all have dealt with at some point. Those of you who have it, you're lucky. For real. Count yourself lucky because you didn't have to deal with that. So, but yeah, stigma is real. It's still out there. Be careful. Some people are they'll get very angry for whatever reason. There's a lot of misconceptions when it comes to it. I've even, in the past, I've tried to date somebody and she said, "Oh, my ex used cannabis and he was a terrible person." I'm like, he was probably just a terrible person. It wasn't the weed that made him a terrible person.
If anything, you might have got the best out of it.
Yeah, I was like, that was probably just him being nice. Like you probably, yeah. So like, that didn't go anywhere because she blamed me and the weed when I didn't even know who she was. So I was like, okay, well, that's not going to happen.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so the stigma's there, even everywhere you go, from the dating scene to, being in a group of a bunch of different business people from the city you're from. It's everywhere. And, to be honest, I do want to say this, that it was so cool at the beginning because I even met one of the people that was a part of it who was a fan, who watched the show. And he's a business guy, not even a part of the cannabis industry.
Oh, wow.
And so, he approached me and was like, "Oh, I get to see the man in the face." I was like, "What are you talking about?" And I wasn't even thinking that, anyone there knew because they're all outside of the cannabis industry. I didn't think anyone would know who I was, and he did. Mm-hmm. So it was really cool. So thank you for that. That was really cool because it showed me how far we have gone with the stigma before I had that situation with that one person, that kind of tried to make me look a certain way when this other guy gave me a different experience the day before. He even thanked me because I had smoked with him and he was always like, "Yeah, it's always harsh, this and that, blah, blah, blah. But, this time it was nice, like, thank you, like he literally thanked me." And so that was cool.
That's dope.
And so shout out to you and everything. I try not to name names or anything. And to be honest, I try not to remember names so I don't mistakenly say them.
That's funny.
Yeah. So that way I don't mistakenly say them. So shout out to you and everything. That was great. Thank you so much for, your hospitality and kindness because that went a long way, because that situation could have ended, someone's weekend very easily. And to be honest, at first I was a little bothered, but then I was like, you know what? This is actually a chance for education and a chance for me to see where we are. Like we have more work to do. That's all this is telling me. So thank you for that, for making me realize that we still got work to do. So I just want to move on from we'll move on from the stigma thing now. I mean, there's really not too much to talk about it other than situations and, it's still there. I just want to make everybody aware that it's still there. It's still alive. And it's going to be up to us to fight it and to stand our grounds when we're not doing anything wrong. So if you guys are going through that too, you're not the only one that deals with it. All of us do. Sure. So we're going to move on and we're going to talk about the New Mexico legislative update. And I know you're still new to like the whole legislative process and everything.
For sure.
If you have a question, I mean, I'm sure someone else watching would have the same one. So if you have a question, I mean, just jump on up and ask it, man, and interrupt me if you need to.
Okay.
Yeah, because, cool. Sometimes I'm going so fast and, I've been doing this for so long that I don't even think about something like, oh, they don't know what that is.
Yeah.
So if I do, let me know.
I just had found out that plant count thing because obviously I'm a resident.
Yeah,
so I was interested in that one.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I was like, oh, am I going to be able to have 24 flower or veg? Or
like what is it?
What is it?
Yeah.
And then as soon as like we kind of got that, confirmation, I was just like, oh, okay, that makes sense. So with 2 adults in the house, it's 24. It's 24 altogether.
Altogether,
yeah.
Veg and mature. And one thing they weren't talking about in the hearing was they weren't separating the two. So it's 12 mature total and 12 immature. So they weren't telling you that. They were saying, oh, they can grow 24 mature plants is pretty much what they were saying. They didn't say that word, but they said they can grow 24 plants. And the legislators were under the impression that, oh, okay, so we'll just take the average of, what a grower commercially can grow, which is, they said, about a pound. And I'm like, that's incorrect for most patients who grow. Now, there's very few who can, but most, like 99, 98% grow less than that.
Oh yeah,
per plant.
Sure.
Way significantly less. Maybe a quarter pound a plant, if that.
And if it's coming out smokable.
Yeah,
also
exactly.
is a factor.
Yeah, like what they don't realize is growing is a lot harder than a lot of these legislators are making it to seem. Because one was like, oh, I went there, and he always uses this one, and he's been saying it for years. Oh, they look like pinon trees. They were so big, and this and that. And he's trying to make it scary, that these big, scary plants and with these big, scary buds and you know, there was a lot of misconceptions that went with it. So yeah, it's real, you know, with that too. With
Stigma
them.
again.
Yeah, the stigma again goes back.
I feel
to
like they think you remember Scary Movie 2 when the weed rolls him up.
Yeah.
That's what they think is going on.
That's exactly what they think is going on. So it's ridiculous the fact that they think we're gonna have 24 pounds by the end of the season, but when you're not even allowed to flower 24 plants, it's 12.
Yeah,
and no one was
crazy.
making that distinct comparison. It's like one's 12 mature, one's 12 immature, and if you live alone, it's 6 and 6.
6 and 6.
Yeah, so it's even less.
Yeah.
So now it's not every resident. It would be residents that live together. Now, how many people live together in a home to have the total of 24? You know, like now we got to look into that.
For sure.
You know, how many single people? I'm a single guy. I live alone. I'm only allowed 6.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, there's that. So there was a lot of misconceptions when it went with it. And what I'm talking about is SB 99, SB 6 is the one I'm talking about specifically. But first, let me talk about SB 99, because this one's going to be the most important bill out of all of this. And I know SB 6 is important, and we put a fire under our ass because of what they did, and I'll get to more of that in a minute. But SB 99 is important because next year, the taxes are due to increase. They're going to go from 12% to 13% with a total of 21%. Right now, we're paying a total of 20. I know it's kind of confusing with all those numbers. But if you go to the store right now, the total tax that you normally pay, depending on the city and the county you're at, is about 20%. And that's because it's a 12% tax on cannabis, but you have to tack on the local tax, which means the county and the city tax. And that usually goes up to about 20%. So at the end of the day, we're going to have a very high taxed industry, which scares me, because that would mean that the traditional market will start to take over even more. Okay. Now, we do have a traditional market issue here still, and it's shrinking. And that's one thing that the legislators are like, oh, you guys said it was going to kill the industry, the black market, blah, 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 and, you know, just pretty much blaming it and trying to make it seem like we're a careless industry. But the problem is we don't have regulation that fixes that, and that's the issue. CCD doesn't have the power that they need. They don't have the money that they need. There's certain laws that, you know, are just not written very correctly to where they can enforce it. They don't need to change the law, just clean it up so they can enforce it. And like, don't screw us over and take things away. You know, because now they're starting to try to take things away because they're blaming us for the issues that they caused. You know, for the laws that they made. We didn't write these laws. Yeah. We didn't pass them.
They're just misinformed. They're just throwing around misinformation and then
exactly. Yeah, and hoping someone bites. You know, and it's a partisan thing. You know, one side doesn't like the other. They don't want this to work and blah blah blah. So they're trying to sabotage it in certain ways, and it hurts us in the end when they play these partisan games, especially our industry. And I do not like that. And that's one thing I hate about politics, is they play these partisan games, and the only people that suffer in the end are us. You know, they're good regardless at the end of the day. Yeah. As long as they get elected, they're happy. But us down here, we're the ones who just feel it all, you know, especially the business owners and the people, the consumers and the patients and everyone. So one little change can fuck us all. But anyway, I'll get off that rant and I'll talk more about this one. This one's actually really short. So what this one would do is it would stop the incremental increase. We're at 12, and by 2030, we'll be at 18%, which I believe jumps us up to about 26% total of taxes, which, to be honest, I wouldn't even want to pay that. And right now we're at a threshold at 20%. New Mexicans can barely afford this tax if they don't have a medical cannabis card. If we go up, they're just going to go back to the traditional market. So this bill right here is important that it passes. And what it does is just takes it off and it leaves it at 20% for now. And they'll probably figure it out at some other time. I did propose that we tax out-of-state people more than we tax in-state people. Because that makes sense. Residents shouldn't pay as much of a tax.
I thought that was a great idea, by the way.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. I was told, however, that tax and rev may not be able to do that. I wasn't told why, but that's what I was told.
So more logging.
Maybe, more tracking, yeah. Probably. Me, I'm like, I really don't care. That's your job. Yeah, I'm like, your job is to track.
It's crazy. In Jersey, they had the same plan. It started off at 10, then 15, then 20, and 25. And I think it's at 20 right now, 20% tax.
And that's before the city and county.
That's just the cannabis tax.
Yeah, that's ridiculous because they're like, yeah, tax the crap out of it. And the shitty thing about this is a lot of the cities are against removing incremental tax. And the thing that bothers me about that is none of these cities have that incremental tax yet. They all have the 20, you know, actually it's about 4% for a city and 4% for county is really what it is. And so they have that percentage, and I don't know why they're against it, because they haven't had a higher percentage yet. So how can you be mad at something you haven't had yet?
You haven't even tasted it.
Yeah, like they're like, oh, well, we're going to lose money. You can't lose money. You haven't had that percentage. Like, how can you lose money when you haven't even had that yet? You know, that doesn't make any sense. Like, that's losing money on paper. Like, this is, you know, like, what if lose money? You know, like, if we keep this, you keep the same amount of money, And it could be even more if we tax out-of-state people and tax less for the New Mexican residents. So we'll see.
Yeah, hopefully that gets through. That sounds like a great idea.
Yeah, it is. And this is this is a sole bill by itself, very short. And the reason why they did that is because they don't need a long bill, because it gets confusing. Something like this is easier to pass in a short session like this year, which is a 30-day session. So I just wanted to let everybody know and get everybody informed on this one. This is important. Contact your legislators, your representatives, and let them know that this does need to pass. But keep in mind of all the circus games that are going on up there too. So it is frustrating. All right, so I'm gonna move on to SB6. Now this is the one that's important. This is the one I've been talking about the past couple of days. This is the one we all have been pissed the fuck off about. So SB6 started out, it was very benign. There was nothing benign. There was nothing really in there that was really crazy for change. It was really just cleaning up some languages, really trying to enforce certain things. And the whole industry was like, yeah, this bill's fine. But during the hearing, Senator Pirtle actually introduced a bunch of amendments. Only two stayed. But the one that really sticks out, is the amendment that removes drive-through cannabis shops. Now that one was huge. And what bothers me about that is his reasonings were based on fear, assumption, and wanting to regulate cannabis like alcohol due to ignorance, because they believe that cannabis and alcohol are the same, because cannabis is considered an intoxicant when you're not intoxicated. Anyway, it's not like alcohol is what I'm trying to say. It's nothing like alcohol. Nothing like alcohol is one of the few drugs where if you're addicted to it and you quit cold turkey, you can die. That and heroin are one of the only few that can do that to you. There's more, but those are the two comparisons I can give you off the top of my head. But alcohol is descheduled, not scheduled whatsoever, and it is federally regulated, and you can buy it wherever you want. Here in New Mexico, we did have drive-through alcohol back in the day. I remember as a kid, my grandpa picking it up from a drive-through, and they stopped that. Well, we've had issues with alcohol in New Mexico for a very, very long time. And alcohol has been an issue in America and pretty much around the world for a very, very long time. So it makes sense that you need to regulate alcohol differently than you do other things. Like we have drive-thrus for tobacco, so why are we getting rid of the cannabis ones? I understand the alcohol ones, that makes total sense. But the cannabis ones are different. We don't have a medical alcohol program. We have a medical cannabis program on top of the recreational one. So one thing that kind of pissed me off a little bit was they told us that, oh, well, since we didn't have any issues during the medical days without drive-thrus, yeah, I'm going to vote for this. When that wasn't the case. That's actually a lie, a blatant lie. Yeah. For years, I sat there with my advocacy group and we fought for drive-thrus. We begged for drive-thrus. Patients begged for drive-thrus. And finally, we got it with HB2 and we have been ecstatic. We have been happy. And, patients have been happy. And, even parents are telling me like, no, it's great because I can't take my kids into the dispensary. So if I go through the drive-thru, I can get my cannabis and not leave my kids in the car.
That's true.
So it's a safety thing on that too. But, another argument that they gave, and this sucks because I actually did speak during this. They actually asked for my input and I can't rebuttal. I can't argue back. I can't respond back to them. So when they start debating again and I'm off that, I can't say anything. So whatever they were saying, they were just allowed to say it. And I couldn't say nothing. Now, don't get me wrong. The people of the panel had every right and every say to respond back and rebuttal, but they didn't. I don't know if they just weren't informed or if they just didn't care or what, but they had every opportunity to defend the bill. And, one of the legislators changed their votes at the very end because, my testimony. Now, if I was able to respond to what they were saying because all of it was false and misleading, it may have been different because we have been trying to get drive-thrus since we were medical and we got it. And we have had no issues with this since we've started it. Now, I will say one caveat. The drive-thrus that use the bank tube system like they used to use, that I do feel would need to change because I feel there needs to be a face-to-face interaction versus a audio reaction because you can't really see certain things. Now, they mentioned that, and I was like, that's fair. That's fair. But do not take away the walk-up ones or the drive-through ones. That doesn't make any sense, especially if you have a medical cannabis program attached to it. And we fought for so long and we're being told that we didn't. I'm like, no, I clearly remember we begged and asked for drive-thrus for so long. And then finally we got them, and now you guys are trying to take them away out of fear, assumptions, and wanting to regulate like cannabis. Because the other reason that Senator Pirtle said that he wanted to add this, it wasn't just his fear of they're not checking IDs correctly. His other fear is the fact that, oh, we're not regulating this like alcohol. I don't think it's very fair. He thinks it's unfair that we're treating alcohol terribly and cannabis better than alcohol. And that doesn't make any sense to me.
Alcohol is terrible.
Yeah, it is. Like I don't know how many bars I've been to and something stupid happened in the parking lot afterwards. It's better to leave before the bar gets out than leaving with everybody, the whole crowd, because something dumb will happen.
It's bound
Like
to.
bound to happen. It's just gonna.
Leaving a sesh, somebody might fall asleep in their car or something. Might take a little nap.
Right.
Oh,
you might have
man.
some guy like try to fall asleep standing up. That's all you're gonna have,
I
really.
can't drive right now.
Yeah, even people that have beef, I've seen it hasn't been as bad. I saw somebody get slapped once. That's about it. And he wasn't even high. He was just mad that he was there.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
it was-
Slapped after a couple dabs has to feel nuts.
Yeah, it's like I didn't feel nothing. So SB6, in my opinion, it needs to die. It needs to be a bill that has to go away for the fact that now we're going to get rid of drive-thrus. And here's my reasoning. There's certain dispensaries, we call them shacks here in the state, that are solely drive-through only. The only way you can buy from them is through a drive-through or through a walk-up. And these places will have to shut down. So what you're telling me is that your fear and your assumptions are more important than New Mexicans' livelihood in this industry and business. So now these people are going to have to shut down and figure out something else to do. When we can't even deduct taxes, we're on 280E. We're not like any other industry. We can't deduct taxes. We can't get any federal help or funding. And so you want these people that have sometimes put their livelihood into this to just get out because of a fear. Now, if there was data to back this up, that might be different, but there's no data. And we've had no issues due to the drive-thrus. So I don't know why this was put there in the first place. So I feel in the next committee, someone should try to take this out because this is detrimental to our industry. Now, there's certain dispensaries in the state, yes, that have a lobby and they have a drive-thru. Now, what that does is it allows them to close a lobby at a certain hour, and it's a little safer to use a drive-thru versus a lobby where someone can just walk in and do whatever, and it's harder to get in through a window. So this adds a safety layer for the dispensaries if they want to operate a little bit later, because the state gave local jurisdictions the power to set operating times if they want. In Cruces, we didn't. So you can sell 24 hours a day if you'd like. They had a problem with that. I don't know why, because I made the argument that certain people don't work 9 to 5. Certain people get off at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 5 a.m., 8 a.m. They should have the same right as the person who gets off at 5 o'clock, 5 p.m. because it makes no sense. My 8 a.m. is someone else's 5 p.m. because of the hours that I've worked. And I've worked those shifts before. I think it would be fair for someone who works those shifts, those hours, regardless of where you work, to be able to do that. That's your right. And now they're taking it away out of fear. So my thing is, none of this should be here because of that. And then they made another argument about the ADA, the Disabled Act, the American Disabled Act, I think is what it's called. What that does is pretty much every building has to have like ramps and stuff for someone in a wheelchair. Well, not every person that's disabled is disabled enough to use a wheelchair. Some people are almost like vegetative or old people that have a hard time getting out of their vehicle in the first place to get into the wheelchair. It saves them time, energy, and pain, literal pain, to just stay in the car, get their medicine, and drive off. That's why Walgreens still has a drive-through. This is still medical. Don't forget that. Walgreens will sling you fentanyl through the window. But you don't want me to buy cannabis, which isn't going to kill me, through a window. That's a little bit ridiculous. And to me, there was just a lot of fear mongering. And I felt bad because I wasn't prepared to make some of these arguments and to make a statement. I said the best I could, but at the end of the day, it wasn't enough because we're not allowed to rebuttal. And sadly, the panel wasn't educated enough because they kept calling 24 plants when it was 12 plants. There's one instant there to defend us. It was sad really to watch it, and all of us were really hurt. So if you are a walk-up retail or a drive-through retail only, please contact your legislators. Let them know that you do not want that amendment in the bill. If that's the case, to kill the bill. And we'll try again next year for something else. What this tells us too is that we're going to have to find more fuel to fight this argument, because this isn't the end. They're going to come for this. They're going to keep coming for this. And they're coming for our home grows too. That was another thing that they wanted to do. They wanted to add another amendment in there, and it failed, to force us to get a license to grow cannabis. Yeah, I don't need a license to grow tomatoes, tobacco, to make beer in my garage, but I need a license to grow cannabis, and I don't know why. They wanted us to go online, like a hunting license, this and that. That's fine for hunting, because hunting, you don't want people to kill all the animals. So having a license makes sense. And we also have a poaching issue already. So that doesn't even fix the issue of what they're trying to fix in the first place. Like, you have the licensing to fix the poaching and the overkilling when that's still an issue. So who's to say that this licensing is going to stop whatever issue that they're afraid of that's not even there, it's non-existent. So that's my thing. And I really want to get all the information out and then get your thoughts on this too. So sorry I talk so much, but I really want to get all that
Hey,
information.
no, it's good, man. I'm learning a lot right now. Yeah, I'm soaking up. So go ahead.
No, I mean, I'm pretty much, that was pretty much the whole bill, what happened.
Okay.
So I just kind of want to get your side from like the industry side.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of crazy. I mean, personally, I haven't had. I usually love the experience of going into the dispensary, so
Yeah.
I haven't had the pleasure of using a drive-through yet. But I could definitely see how the convenience could work for the medical aspect, and
Yeah.
even if they decided to eliminate it for recreational patients, I mean, that's also very troublesome because it's like you said, a parent that can't leave their children in the car, or
Yeah.
like shouldn't be leaving your dogs in the car either. And I've been at the dispo and seen it.
Yeah, exactly.
Multiple times.
Yeah,
like,
dude.
You know what I mean? And that's not cool. Like you shouldn't be doing that stuff.
You can get in trouble for that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
actually, actual trouble for doing something bad, and they are enabling you to do something bad if we don't got those avenues to do those things, and it just makes it more difficult for people. They'll let people buy McDonald's drive-through, and that's cancer in a cup.
Right, exactly.
You know what I mean?
And like I said, fentanyl through the window.
Yeah, it's no joke. It's for real. Fentanyl, opioids, all these things that people are actually getting addicted to. They're ready to let that go like hotcakes. But I never understood. Not that I never understood, but when there's so much literature and there's so much like actual research, how all of these politicians that swear they're fighting at the forefronts for people are so misinformed. And like you said, fear mongering.
Yeah.
Like that's like the most ridiculous thing. Like using misinformation to intimidate or to make somebody feel uneducated when you're actually spreading the misinformation.
Yeah, when you're the one not educated,
it's nuts.
It just blew my mind. I was like, none of this is true.
Yeah,
what the hell is going on?
Like, why are these people in charge?
Yeah.
How about this aspect of it? Like, maybe you guys know something about this over here, but obviously this right here, y'all don't know nothing that's going on. You know what I mean? It's how they say sometimes, like, you gotta have an ear to the streets too, and they're just so out of touch.
Yeah, they are. And what bothers me is they don't really have industry representation. And when they do, it's cherry picked. It's cherry picked by a corporate, an MSO, or someone who purposely doesn't know much so they can do their agenda or whatever. They're never really getting experts in there. And I'm not saying me or whoever. I'm just saying an expert in the field. We need that on there. Not just someone from CCD, not just a lawyer, not just a lawmaker. Because the lawmakers, they're normally lawyers. They're normally lawyers before they become lawmakers. You don't have to be a lawyer to be a lawmaker. That's just what they commonly are. I mean, there's some who were teachers before or a doctor. The qualifications are really low to be a legislator, to be honest. But most of them are lawyers because they understand law and how to write law, et cetera, et cetera. So it just makes sense for them. So some of them just don't know a lot on the topic. And so it's up to us. But it's also up to them to listen to us when we're trying to educate them. And it just seems like some of these legislators have just been not listening this whole time and refuse. Because them sitting there and saying 24 plants, when that is not the case at all, tells us everything. We were like, 24? What are they getting?
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Are we talking about something different?
And it wasn't even until I left the hearing did I realize they didn't separate the mature and immature. What? Oh my God. That's why they think we're going to have 24 pounds, because they didn't tell them at no point will there be 24 plants immature, because that is illegal. Yeah. It is illegal to have 24 mature plants growing. You can only have 12 total mature.
And they should have known that.
Yeah, and they shouldn't. It says it clear as day in the bill. It's like the bill tells you which one, mature and immature. So I don't know how they missed that and why. To me, it's an agenda thing. Wanted to get the bill passed a certain way, or amendments added and all that. So, but that's pretty much SB6. I spent a lot of time on it because it's super important, y'all. I mean, this one needs to die. SB 99 needs to pass. I will leave with a caveat, though. There's one more bill I want to talk about. That's HB 128. Now, this is the sister bill. It's the House version of SB 6. Now, this one does not have that amendment to close drive-thrus. However, that's not to say that it can't happen. So in the next committee hearing that this House version is going to be in, there could be an amendment that's added into it that's similar or the same to this one. And then at some point, they're going to mesh them together. We need to fight that. That can't be added to this. And the reason why I'm saying that is this version is supposed to be for the industry. And from my understanding, SB6 is for CCD. That's a CCD bill written by them. So it makes sense why they'd be okay with taking away drive-thrus. This one's for the industry, and the industry needs to fight in there and say, no, we need to have drive-thrus, because it just makes sense on a medical purpose. Again, we don't have a medical alcohol industry. It doesn't exist. We have a medical cannabis industry. And to be honest, most states have medical cannabis. And this is something that New Mexico did that a lot of people loved. And it's not even with the sales. It's just for convenience for the patient. Be it if you're in pain, unable to be in a wheelchair. And sometimes people are telling me those inclines on the ADAs are sometimes so steep you can't wheel yourself up by yourself, or you can't wheel up at all. So sometimes ADA is just a standard, and that's exactly what it is. It's just a standard that you have to get to. It doesn't mean that it's been tested to make sure that a handicapped person can make it. It's just an idea. Like, oh, they have a ramp, they should be able to make it up the bills, right? Yeah. You can do it on a bike, right? So that's one thing that I have a problem with the ADA and that argument, is the fact that not everybody can use ADA compliant things because they are just that messed up physically, or even mentally. Some people don't want to be in a crowded place, and that should be my choice as a consumer. If I don't want to be in a crowded place, I shouldn't have to be
at all,
and so that should be my option. And that's why this scares me. Now, keep in mind, guys, this is a 30-day session, and some of these bills aren't going to pass, and I hope they don't, because we just don't have time. The session ends February 15th, a couple weeks away, but there's still plenty of time for these to pass somewhere, floor, whatever, and get the whole way. Both bills haven't made it out of their respective chambers yet, so they haven't gone to the other one. So they're still in the first process of the whole bill-making process and the law-making process. So keep that in mind. We still have time. Just because it went to that committee doesn't mean that it's going to be law or that it is law. This is just a proposal, pretty much, for a law. And if it does pass and the governor signs it, then it will become law. So that's one thing that a lot of people were confused about, and I wanted to clarify too. And do you have any questions yourself?
No, I feel like that pretty much covered it all, what you were covering over the weekend and what you had going on. I mean, I've always had like a decent understanding, I guess, about the process of how bills and laws get passed. But just to kind of see how involved we can get in the cannabis aspect is very cool. But at the same time, it is disheartening to hear how out of touch, legislative is right now. But I think that means there's only room for improvement, right?
Yeah, 100%. With us fighting, we're only going to get in a better place. And the reason why something like this gets added is because we remain silent. It is okay to contact your representatives. It is okay to call them, to snail mail them, to set up a meeting with them. That is your right. They work for us. Don't forget that. They are our representatives. That's why they're called that. So they're making the laws for us, even though sometimes it doesn't seem like that, because when they make a law, they're only going off of what they know or what they're told, unless they're told otherwise. Sometimes there's been a time where one or two people have told a legislator something and they changed it totally. So just keep that in mind. But that's really all I had for those bills in the legislative update. Make sure you guys follow, and subscribe all my socials, so that way you can stay up to date on all the most latest legislative stuff. As soon as it happens, or as soon as someone sends it to me, I'm sharing it, and it's going, and I'm tagging them. I even tag AP over here.
Yeah. And I'm back on the gram, so you'll see me reposting. I took a little mental health break, just taking it easy off of there for a little bit. But I'm back on there, strictly cannabis on all platforms as well, and always sharing Invader Kushes, all that good stuff, and you'll be able to use me also as a reference point for whatever he's putting out now.
Cool. Well, I appreciate it, man. I appreciate that a lot. Yeah,
of course.
And within time, maybe all of us will become, experts in the cannabis field, and also in the lawmaking field and everything, because if you're in the industry, you secretly signed up to be an advocate, and I'm sorry to tell you that. But now it's time for us to start acting like it. Before I leave, I do want to mention that there was a cannabis shop that was raided this past last week. Cannabis Revolution in Albuquerque. 2 of their shops got raided. Come to find out, they were doing a bunch of dirty stuff. So more on that will probably come out in the coming weeks. I'm sure the reports and everything. I already saw the articles. I shared the article on my socials, so you guys can actually check it out now. But actually not, because at the time of recording, it's not going to come out till tomorrow. So it might not be there. So depending on what time you guys see it, it's there or it's not. But anyway, I want to thank you guys for watching again. Thank you for showing up.
Hey, man.
Hey, I appreciate
you for having me, man. It was a blast.
It was, yeah. Thank you. And before we go, I want to thank my sponsor again, Quality Packaging, for sponsoring this episode and for the whole month. It's been great. I thank you guys so much. Quality Customs, contact Josh Villegas at 575-571-6288 for inquiries or quotes. Quality Customs, providing the cannabis industry with great packaging, custom boxes, designs, and signs. Quality made men with quality made products. All right, guys. I'll see you again next week for another episode of #Grassy Logic, and we'll see what happens with this legislative process. All right. Shoots.